Get that filth out of my office!
Tariq Haddad doesn't look at her when he says it. Kyra Bennett keeps her head down, 12 years old, small hands on the trash liner, trying to stay invisible. He kicks the bin. Papers scatter across the marble floor.
Bila qima.
Worthless, he mutters in Arabic to his assistant. The cleaner's daughter, useless, like her mother. His assistant laughs. Kyra says nothing. She kneels, she gathers the papers.
You understand nothing,
Tariq says, switching back to English, looking through her like glass.
do you?
She doesn't answer. He steps over her, straightens his jacket, lowers his voice back into Arabic for his assistant alone. These Americans are fools. We take the 500 million. The girl cleans up after. He doesn't know what he's just done. This worthless child understands every word, every insult, every detail of the plan he just handed her like a gift. In 72 hours, she's going to use it to bring his entire empire down. 3 floors down, the supply closet smells like bleach and cold coffee. Kyra's mother counts paper towel rolls against a clipboard. The same ritual she runs every night. The same ritual that's earned her 11 years, and not one person upstairs who knows her first name. You're shaking, her mother says, not looking up. What happened? Kyra doesn't answer right away. Mama, I heard something. Heard what, baby? Mr. Haddad, on the phone. He was speaking Arabic. Her mother's pen stops moving. Okay. And. Silence. 3 seconds. In this closet, 3 seconds is a long time. Kyra, careful now. Quiet now. You don't speak Arabic. I do, Mama. And what he said wasn't just ugly. Her voice drops. It was a plan. It happens in 3 days. Her mother doesn't move. She just looks at her daughter, like she's seeing a door she's walked past 1,000 times and only just noticed it leads somewhere else entirely. Hi viewers, quick one before we keep going. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who they were talking to? Yes or no in the comments. I want to see how many of you. 4 years before that night, Kyra sat on the floor of a church basement, headphones too big for her ears, replaying the same Arabic phrase until her tongue stopped tripping on it. Nobody asked her to learn it. Nobody paid her to learn it. A family from Aleppo had moved into the apartment above hers, and their daughter cried every day at school because no teacher could understand a word she said. Kyra decided that was unacceptable. She was 8 years old. She didn't know yet that some problems are too big for one child to fix. She only knew that crying was something you could stop if you tried hard enough. So she tried. Library Wi-Fi after school, free apps with cracked screens and missing letters. A retired teacher at the community center who traded grammar lessons for help carrying groceries. 4 years of stealing minutes nobody knew she was stealing, building something nobody knew existed. Now that secret had a price tag. $500 million. Her mother sat across from her in the supply closet, clipboard forgotten, staring at her daughter like she was a stranger wearing a familiar face. Say it again, her mother whispered. Slow. Kyra repeated it. Word for word. The threat, the plan, the contempt dressed up as confidence. Her mother pressed both hands to her mouth. Baby, if you say this to the wrong person, and you're wrong, I'm not wrong. If you're wrong, we lose this job. Maybe more than this job. Kyra understood exactly what that meant. 11 years of paychecks, 11 years of insurance cards and quiet dignity, built one shift at a time, gone in one bad afternoon. But there was something else in the room now, something heavier than fear. A number, $500 million, and a deadline that didn't care whose mother needed her job. There's a housing project, Kyra said quietly, tied to the deal. You mentioned it. People are supposed to move into new apartments because of this contract. Her mother went still. If the deal closes the way he wants it to close, Kyra continued, those families don't get apartments. They get nothing. He's going to use the money somewhere else, somewhere that isn't them. Comey mentioned it. Her mother had cleaned this building long enough to know which families were waiting on which promise. She knew names. She knew children. That was the moment fear stopped being the only thing in the room. Show me your phone, her mother said. Kyra unlocked it, scrolled past language apps, past saved videos, of news anchors speaking too fast for anyone but her, until she reached a single folder. Inside it, 9 months of voice memos. Translated phrases. Notes typed in the dark, in case she ever needed proof that what she understood was real. I started recording things a while ago, Kyra admitted. Not because of him, because sometimes adults don't believe kids, even when the kids are right. Her mother stared at the folder like it was a door swinging open onto a hallway she'd never noticed before. How long have you been doing this? Long enough to know I'm not wrong about tonight. Outside the closet, a vacuum droned somewhere down the hall. Ordinary sound, ordinary night. Neither of them felt ordinary anymore. If we tell someone, her mother said slowly, it has to be someone with power. Someone who can actually stop a deal like this. Not security, not a manager, someone at the top. Mr. Calloway, Kyra said. Her mother's mouth went dry. David Calloway owned the company. David Calloway didn't know either of their names. Baby, men like that don't listen to women like me. Then make him listen to me. Her mother looked at her daughter, 12 years old, holding a phone full of secrets too big for her own hands, and felt something rearrange itself permanently inside her chest. Not pride exactly. Something sharper. Something closer to terror and faith, stitched together with no seam between them. We don't have an appointment, her mother said. We don't have permission. We're cleaning stuff. If we walk up to his floor uninvited, then we go before he leaves the building tonight, Kyra said. Because in 72 hours, it won't matter what we knew. It'll only matter what we didn't do. Her mother picked up the clipboard, set it down again, picked it up a second time, as if her hands needed something to hold on to, besides the size of what was about to happen. If this goes wrong, she whispered, more to herself and to Kyra, it goes wrong for both of us. And if it goes right, Kyra said, it goes right for a lot more people than just us. Neither of them moved for a moment. The fluorescent light above them buzzed, flickered once, steadied. Then her mother stood up, untied her apron, folded it over the back of a chair, like she was setting something down she might not pick up again. Okay, she said. Let's go talk to a man who's never once looked us in the eye. They left the supply closet together. 2 cleaning carts stayed behind, abandoned mid-shift, for the first time in 11 years. At the executive elevator, a security guard named Marcus held up a hand before either of them said a word. Ladies, this floor's closed for the night. Mr. Calloway's wrapping up. We need 2 minutes, Kyra's mother said. It's important. Everything's important at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, Marcus said, not unkindly, just tired. Kyra stepped forward before her mother could stop her. Tell him it's about the Haddad deal, she said. Tell him it's about the 500 million. Marcus's hand froze halfway to the radio clipped on his shoulder. He didn't know how a 12-year-old in a school backpack knew that number. Neither did Kyra's mother, not really. Not the full weight of it, not yet. But somewhere behind that elevator door, an office light was still on. A man who had built an empire out of contracts and instincts was finishing his last call of the night, completely unaware that 2 people he had never once acknowledged were standing 20 feet away, holding the only thing standing between him and the biggest mistake of his career. Marcus lowered his hand slowly. Wait here, he said. I'll ask. And for the first time all night, Kyra felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Hope, with a deadline attached to it. David Calloway's office smelt like coffee gone cold and ambition that never quite slept. He looked up when the door opened, expecting his assistant. Instead, he found a cleaning woman he half recognized, and a child clutching a backpack like it contained something fragile. Mrs. Bennett, he remembered her name. Small mercy. Is everything all right? Mr. Calloway, I'm sorry to bother you this late. My daughter says she heard something about tomorrow's signing. He glanced at Kyra. Curious, not annoyed. That was the first surprise. Come in, he said. Both of you. Kyra sat at the edge of a leather chair too large for her, feet not quite reaching the floor. What's this about? Calloway asked, settling behind his desk. Mr. Haddad, Kyra said. He speaks Arabic when he thinks no one understands him. Calloway's expression didn't change, not yet. Honey, I think there's been some confusion. He called your contract a trap, Kyra said, cutting through gently but firmly. He said Americans don't check the Arabic translations closely enough to catch what he's hiding. The room went quiet, in a way that rooms only go quiet when something true has just landed in it. How would you know that? Calloway asked. Because I understood every word he said, and I can prove it. She pulled out her phone, opened a news clip in Arabic, and translated it in real time, not haltingly, not guessing, but with the kind of fluency that comes from 4 years of midnight practice. Calloway's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Where did you learn this? YouTube. A teacher at my community center. Practice. She shrugged like it cost nothing, though it had cost her almost everything she had. I helped translate for refugee families. Nobody taught me, because they thought I'd need it for something like this. Calloway set the cup down with a hand that wasn't entirely steady. What exactly did he say about the contract? There's a clause, Kyra said, buried in the Arabic section. It gives him control faster than the English version says, and if you try to fight it later, you pay a penalty most people wouldn't survive. Calloway reached for the physical contract sitting on his desk, the one his own legal team had already approved twice. Kyra scanned the Arabic pages and pointed. Here. It says temporary partnership. But the way it's worded, in context, it actually means temporary until full transfer of control. That's not the same thing your translator probably told you. Calloway stared at the page, then at the child, who had just unraveled something 3 law firms had missed. I need to bring this to my partners, he said quietly. Tonight. The conference room 20 minutes later held 4 senior partners who had not been told why they were summoned this late and were not pleased about it. You want us to delay a $500 million deal, said senior partner Margaret Foster, adjusting her glasses, because of something a child claims to have heard. If you'd just listen, Calloway started. This is absurd, partner Robert Carter cut in. She's 12. Kids exaggerate. Kids make things up for attention. She speaks fluent Arabic, Calloway said. She caught a clause our own lawyers missed, or she heard a few words somewhere and is in the rest, said partner James Sullivan, leaning back. These things happen. Imagination runs wild at that age. Kyra sat very still in the oversized chair, hands folded, saying nothing. She had learned this lesson long before tonight, the lesson that adults sometimes need to underestimate you completely before they're willing to be surprised. May I ask Mr. Sullivan something? She said quietly. The room paused. Go ahead, Calloway said. Kyra looked directly at Sullivan. You said imagination runs wild at my age, but a minute ago you also said we should trust the best legal minds in the building. Those 2 sentences only make sense together if you think being young and being capable can't exist in the same person. Sullivan opened his mouth. Nothing came out, and Mr. Carter, Kyra continued. You said I'm probably filling in the rest. But I haven't told you the rest yet. So how would you know what I'm filling in? Carter's jaw tightened. Foster cleared her throat, the first crack of doubt entering her voice. Fine. Prove it. Say something in Arabic, right now. Kyra didn't hesitate. She recited the exact phrase Tariq had used hours earlier, rigid, precise, unmistakably fluent, then translating it without missing a beat. Nobody in the room spoke for several seconds. Well? Foster finally said, adjusting her glasses again, slower this time. I suppose we have a few questions for Mr. Haddad's translator tomorrow. Calloway turned to Kyra. I want you in that room tomorrow, not as a guest, as part of the team. Doing what? Kyra asked. Listening, Calloway said, and telling me the truth, the moment you hear it. Kyra nodded, but something in her chest tightened, a feeling she couldn't quite name yet, half excitement, half dread, because something Tariq had said earlier kept circling back into her mind, a detail she hadn't mentioned yet. A detail about someone inside this very firm who already knew the contract was rigged and had been paid to make sure no one stopped it. She wasn't ready to say that part out loud. Not yet. Not until she was certain. Mr. Calloway, she said carefully, there's one more thing, but I need to be sure before I say it. Calloway studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him set his pen down completely. Tomorrow, he said. Tell me tomorrow, the second you're sure. Kyra nodded again. Outside the window behind him, the city lights blinked on, indifferent to the fact that somewhere in this building, a trap was already closing, and not all of it was coming from Tariq Haddad. Morning came too fast. Kyra sat in the corner of the final negotiation room with a coloring tablet she didn't need and a backpack she'd brought as a prop. To anyone walking past, she was simply a child waiting for her mother to finish a shift. Quiet, harmless. Forgettable. That was exactly the point. Calloway had given her a simple code the night before. 3 taps for something false, 2 taps for something important, 1 tap for something true. Her thumb hovered over the tablet screen, drawing what looked like a rainbow, betraying nothing. Tariq Haddad entered with his assistant and a stack of revised documents. The warmth from the day before was gone. Something in his posture had sharpened overnight, like a man who suspected the air around him had changed, but couldn't yet say why. Mr. Calloway, he said smoothly, I've brought updated terms. Final. Non-negotiable. Calloway accepted the papers without blinking. Of course. I'd like our consultant to review the language first. Tariq's eyes flicked toward the corner. Consultant. Recent edition. Calloway said simply. Tariq studied Kyra for a long moment, a child coloring, headphones half on, utterly uninterested in the room. He looked away. He shouldn't have. The moment his attention shifted, he murmured something to his assistant in Arabic, low and fast. Their lawyer isn't here today. No one in this room can read what we actually wrote. Kyra's thumb tapped the screen twice. Important. Calloway glanced down at his phone beneath the table. These terms, he said, aloud, studying the English page, mention a 60-day transition period. I'd like to discuss enforcement mechanisms in more detail. Tariq's expression didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. The English version said 60 days. He had never mentioned 60 days to Calloway directly. That number existed only in conversations he believed were private. Standard language, Tariq said carefully. Nothing unusual. Kyra's thumb tapped once. True, and that single truth, spoken so easily, made the lie sitting beside it impossible to miss. The assistant leaned toward Tariq and whispered, barely audible, how does he know to ask about enforcement? Did someone read the Arabic pages? Tariq's gaze swept the room again. Slower this time, more deliberate. It landed on Kyra. She kept coloring. A rainbow, careful, even strokes. The picture of a child who understood nothing. Little girl, Tariq said, switching smoothly into Arabic, testing the air itself. What's your name? Kyra didn't look up, didn't pause, didn't so much as blink. He waited 2 seconds longer than necessary. Do you like rainbows? He asked, still in Arabic, watching her hand instead of her face. Her crayon kept moving, steady, unbothered, satisfied. Tariq turned back toward Calloway, but not entirely. A sliver of doubt remained, the kind that doesn't disappear just because the test came back clean. Mr. Haddad, Calloway said, I'd also like clarity on the penalty clause. Section 73. The figure mentioned there seemed significant. Tariq froze. He had never said that number in English. Not once. Not to Calloway, not to anyone in this room. There must be a leak, he hissed to his assistant in Arabic, low enough that he believed it was private. Someone has seen the real document. Kyra's thumb moved twice. Fast, important. Both dots blinking now on Calloway's phone, red layered against blue, urgency stacking on urgency. Tariq stood abruptly, his chair scraped against the floor, too loud, too sudden, the sound of a man whose confidence had finally cracked in public. This meeting is compromised, he announced. I want every unnecessary person removed from this room. Immediately. His eyes landed on Kyra again. This time, he didn't look away. Her, he said, remove the child. The room, went still. Calloway's pulse hammered beneath a face that gave nothing away. If he protected her now, too obviously, the entire operation collapsed before it had the chance to finish. "She's with her mother," Calloway said evenly. "Cleaning stuff. She'll be gone in a moment." "Now," Tariq said. "Not in a moment, now." He crossed the room himself, kneeling slightly to bring his face level with hers. The same posture, the same practiced menace he'd used the night before, except this time he wasn't speaking to furniture. He was speaking to a possibility he couldn't quite rule out. "What's your name?" he asked again, this time in Arabic, watching her eyes instead of her hands. A single beat of silence, stretched long enough to feel like its own small eternity. "I don't understand you," Mr. Kyra said in English, blinking up at him with practiced confusion. "I only speak a little Spanish from school." Tariq's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her, because the alternative meant everything he'd built over the last 6 months was unraveling in front of senior partners who had trusted him with $500 million. "Remove her anyway," he said, straightening. "I won't continue with unauthorized people in this room." Calloway looked at Kyra. One glance, a question disguised as nothing. "Stay or go." This was the moment the entire plan balanced on. The moment where one wrong decision meant losing everything they'd built overnight, and one right decision meant exposing a fraud large enough to ruin a man who thought he was untouchable. Kyra gave the smallest possible nod. "She stays," Calloway said, "or we have no deal." Tariq's hand curled into a fist at his side. "Then perhaps," he said quietly, dangerously, "we have no deal." He didn't know yet how true those words would become, and not for the reason he thought. Because at that exact moment, an email notification blinked silently on a laptop 2 seats down, sent from an internal address none of the partners recognized. A single line, unsigned, confirmed the timeline moved up. They mustn't have time to review. Calloway's eyes flicked to the screen for less than a second. The accomplice wasn't outside this firm. He was sitting in this room. The room had gone cold in a way that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Mr. Haddad," Calloway said, slowly, "before we discuss whether we have a deal, I think it's time everyone here heard exactly what's been said in this room, in every language it's been said in." Tariq's face drained of color. "I don't know what you mean. I think you do." Calloway turned toward Kyra. "Tell them, all of it." Kyra stood, 12 years old, barely reaching the edge of the conference table, and somehow the most composed person in the room. She spoke first in English, then repeated each line in Arabic. Her voice steady, unhurried, devastating in its calm. Mr. Haddad told his assistant, "The real contract gives him full control in 30 days, not 60. He said if you try to stop him, you pay 200 million in penalties. He said the housing project, tied to this deal, would be torn down for something that benefits him, not the families it was promised to." Foster's hand rose slowly to her mouth. "And," Kyra continued, "there's someone inside this firm helping him move faster than anyone expected. Someone who sent a message this morning saying you mustn't have time to review the documents." Every eye in the room turned toward the laptops in front of each partner. Carter's screen was already closed. He hadn't closed it fast enough. "James," Calloway said quietly, the kind of quiet that carries more weight than shouting ever could. "Care to explain?" Sullivan said nothing. His silence said everything. Security had already been notified 20 minutes earlier, the moment Calloway saw the email. They entered without drama, without spectacle, just 2 men walking calmly toward 2 men who had nowhere left to walk. Tariq didn't bother denying it anymore. There was nothing left to deny. "You're a child," he said to Kyra, his voice hollow now instead of cruel. "This isn't supposed to be possible." "You're right," Kyra said. "It's not supposed to be possible. That's exactly why you never saw it coming." She didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply looked at the man who had once called her filth, without bothering to learn her name, and let the silence between them say what words couldn't. 1 year later, a small brass plaque sat outside a modest office on the same floor where Kyra had once emptied trash bins unnoticed. It read simply, Youth Language Consultant. Her mother now ran the building's community outreach program. Full salary, full benefits, full recognition, finally arriving 11 years late, but arriving nonetheless. Margaret Foster had begun taking Arabic lessons twice a week. James Sullivan and Tariq Haddad both faced consequences neither of them saw coming the night this story began. And somewhere in this same building, another child sat quietly in a corner nobody was paying attention to. Proof that the next overlooked genius is never as far away as people assume. If this story moved you, you need to see what happens next. Because the woman who exposed this fraud isn't finished. And the next case she uncovers hits closer to home than anyone in that boardroom is ready for. Subscribe now, because next week we reveal the one detail about Tariq Haddad's bribe trail that even David Calloway didn't see coming until it was almost too late.